Scorsis, CEO of Liberty Health. Welcome to the show. It's been a very action-packed last couple of days for you, and I just want to let our viewers know, just right off the bat, any instances or information in regards to Vic and Afria we are not touching on during this interview. This is about yourself and Liberty Health Sciences. So I just want to make sure we made that clear from the get-go.
Yeah, I think it's important to note that, what short sellers' actual intentions are. I think that's the most important aspect of what we really want to discuss. Short sellers are not there for the actual overall interest of the common shareholder. They're there for their interest of their specific individual or the activity that they do. It's extremely important to look at the fundamentals of the business first and foremost for any shareholder. But when we take a look and we look back at this group specifically or any other group of this nature, we see that facts are inconsistent, they may be outdated in many times, and they may not be fully prepared or investigated properly. This group released several reports this week and other reports that were tied to other companies, and I think they demonstrated that they were using wrong addresses of the individuals. They're tying the wrong people to the business. There was inaccuracies in their statements, and that really followed through to what happened yesterday with Liberty Health Sciences. And when there's certain aspects of it that were clearly inaccurate, when we look at, they presented an individual who's a director of the business who has never been a director of the business or a board member. That's just one simple call out that we can see inaccuracies. We consistently see share counts that were presented to demonstrate nefarious activity. When there was corrections made to a Form 9 with Vic Neufeld that didn't have 2.4 million shares, but 240,000. Also allegations of ties to certain individuals that are non-existent or don't participate in our business. The foundation of the business is extremely critical for us to really understand, is it a strong business? Is this a business we want to support? Is it a business that we want to invest against? And Liberty Health Science demonstrates that, and today was a great example of it. Our quarterly earnings were presented. We had 45% growth, which again, we are on pace to have a great year. We are on pace to deliver against everything we've said. We have $20 million cash, which will bring us to fulfilling all of the deliverables that we suggested. We are moving forward into Ohio, and those are truly the facts. We'll come out with a more fulsome response with regards to every single one of the items that were listed on this report in the upcoming days.
Yeah, and I appreciate your time because you always do have to look at two sides of a story. And as you said, there are elements of this report that you guys are taking the time to address individually. So we'll stay tuned for that and like to talk to you about afterwards, recap on all those different elements. But one question I find investors are asking the most, especially live as we're looking at some of our questions, is the private placement itself. And one of the questions was, did this private placement, so it was 242 million shares at a tenth of a cent. This is before it got amalgamated into what is now Liberty Health. Were you a part of that private placement, or are you on board when that private placement happened?
So I wasn't part of that, but obviously it's important for me to be aware of that, and I am. What is important there to note is, although it shows 240 million, that was prior to the consolidation, which in fact was really 80 million. So that's 1/3 of the business. What's important with that is, although that is notable shareholders that participated in that, most of those shareholders or many of those shareholders also participated in subsequent raises, and they're also still shareholders in our business. So it's easy to depict one single line item and suggest that individuals simply purchased at a very low rate and ran. But many of these individuals are still part of our business, have invested in our business, and are still shareholders. What is also important to note with that is, when do these become free trading, and will it cause downward pressure on the stock? Well, these became free trading 4 months after list. There isn't a future date that's going to hit. And actually, as a result of that, you're not going to see any future downward pressure on our stock. but more so, if they wanted to exit the business, they would have exited by this point. We're seeing that they haven't exited the business in many cases. So it's important to have the full picture and to understand how it's going to affect shareholders. And that, again, is another great example of how we can really provide the full picture and transparency to our shareholders.
Yeah, and that was actually another question that I was going to ask you that you've already gone ahead and said was, what would be the escrow on that, or what is the, how long is that going to be vested for? Because a lot of people, if they see really, really cheap paper, they want to know, is this going to come out tomorrow? Is this going to come out 6 weeks from now? And that's something you have to take in consideration. I believe you just said they have been free trading as of today, or as of in the past, and there's a good chance that they've already been run through.
That's right. It was 4 months after list was the hold period, so it's been well over a year.
Okay, yeah, and that's an important question that people wanted to know. Well, there are other elements that we did. Did you have a question?
Yeah. George, Ed Molesky here. When markets go up and they really go up rapidly, the general mood, everybody's slapping you on the back, and yet they usually push markets too high, and then the inevitable correction takes place, or corrections, as we've seen, and everybody's all of a sudden, they got the magnifying glass out. People want to see the I's dotted, the T's crossed. It's look, there's ups and there's downs, and if anybody thinks they're going to go one way, it never has happened, and it never will happen. And so I just wanted to say that as an observer, and I've observed that markets for 4 decades. Anyway.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. A lot of people just expect it just to keep going up.
That's a good point. And that's a good point. Today, obviously, the Dow is showing a correction in the marketplace, and I think for investors or shareholders, it's important in either way, shape, or form. They really need to look at the fundamentals of the business. That's so important. It's so important to do your own due diligence, because there are going to be times of the marketplace either correcting or ups or downs. But really, it's about the foundation. Does the group have the right foundation? Do they have the right management? Do they have the right strategy to be leaders in the space?
Right.
Absolutely. Well, if you don't mind, we're going to go to the news release that you had earlier today in just a moment. We had some questions both through, we went on to the Liberty Health Sciences Facebook group and asked some questions, but also our audience as well. And George is there, and he asked, can you give us an update on Massachusetts?
Yeah, Massachusetts, we continue to do our due diligence in the marketplace. It's a really interesting market for us. I hope our shareholders can understand that we are extremely disciplined and don't want to jump on a market prior to us doing our proper due diligence and understanding whether this would be the right group to partner with, whether this would be the right time to enter, and this would be the best use of our capital expenditure. So we are still doing our due diligence in that space.
And thank you for asking as well, or for answering, I should say. Another question from our viewers is looking forward guidance, Kentucky hemp producer, and how they're looking to tackling the farm bill in general for you guys, because that's still, I believe it still has to go through House and the Senate still, but that's a big change if it goes through. How are you preparing yourself for that?
Yeah, so it still maintains a little bit of arm wrestling, I would say, between the House and the Senate, and they're still going through some of the finer points. Do we believe that it will pass? Absolutely, and we think it's going to happen very soon. We, as Liberty Health Sciences, believe extremely strongly against this aspect of the business. We believe that hemp and CBD-related hemp will actually change the entire business. The reason for us being extremely diligent into moving into other states is when this bill passes, it is our opinion that this will be a major part of the entire segment and potentially cannibalize certain states in their activities. We have a plan in place. We have products that are CBD related, and we also have partnerships that are pending release that we're going to divulge to all of our to the entire network. But we are extremely bullish in this. Hemp CBD is an important aspect of the entire business that we really need to stay closely looking at, and that's one of the pieces that we're really excited about.
And thank you. And I've got one more question here that actually multiple people asked, and we'll go into today's news release because you had some financial results in there. And it was, who currently owns Copper State Farm? I believe that was an Aphria asset at one point. Are you guys fully own that?
No, so that was an Aphria asset, and Aphria decided to divest of it based on their TSX listing. And they no longer have ownership with it.
Okay, is that fully ownership from for yourselves?
And that's right. We have no ownership of Copper State.
Okay, gotcha. Well, jumping thing, and I appreciate very much for answering those questions from our viewers and different investors of your company. You came out with news today. You had some pretty good earnings there. Do you want to discuss what was in that press release today?
Yeah, this is really what we want. Our shareholders, our audience, all of our supporters to really see 45% growth. It was another great quarter. We accelerated our stores. We're up to 7. We're going to have another 7 open by the end of February. I am currently in Miami right now. We are in the last stage of completing our Miami location, which will be in the upcoming days, and we're really excited about that. And the subsequent stores. Our patient load also increased by 46%. We're doing all the things that we suggested we would do. We want to be a leader in the space. Florida alone is one of the most captivating states that we would want to be into. We believe it's going to be one of the biggest states as well. And that's why we're doubling down on Florida and making sure that we don't become extremely fragmented. We are extremely focused on Florida as the place that we want to put the flag in the ground rather than losing focus of it. And we have some more exciting news, but really that patient uptick is demonstrating that a few of our strategies are working. One is, are we opening the right dispensaries in the right locations? And is our customer service model working in terms of retention and bringing people back and not seeing slippage of our patients? That's one. We are seeing that. The second bet that we made was that patients want national brands. So when you see products in our stores, such as Mary's Medicinals, packs being exclusive to us, we're seeing patients come in and they're saying, we're so happy that you have these products. We've used these products before. We recognize them. It's about building trust with the patients and about them coming back to our stores. And so it really looks like our strategy is coming together exactly as we've outlined. And great results. And we expect the next quarter to be even stronger because we anticipate more stores to be opening at a more accelerated rate.
Yeah, and in Florida, actually, you know, for people who are still trying to catch up to the United States cannabis, first off, where have you been? We've been talking about this for quite a little while now as we're starting to realize, wait a second, America's a pretty big economy. But if you look at Florida specifically, it's amazing how much revenue by some companies, and now you guys are really starting to see that as well, is coming from Florida. There's a huge demand there. And I believe your news release, I'm reading it here, you're going to have 14 dispensaries by February of next year, so in Q1. And it's interesting there because that's ever growing. And I believe it's just medical now, but I wouldn't be surprised. Almost every state so far, they've had medical for a certain amount of time. Rec has followed. What are the political grounds right now for recreation in Florida? Because I actually haven't looked into myself. Is that nearby, or are we still a little bit away for that?
Yeah, I think the sentiment by the average consumer or patient in Florida is that, you know, it should be an adult use state. We believe strongly behind it. I believe some of our competitors also do that have just most recently entered. But really, what is it about? You know, I want to touch on how do you win an adult use state? It's about having the right locations. It's about having the right brands, but it's also about having the right operation. And that's why I want to really touch on our 225,000 square foot grow that we're building for not today, but for tomorrow. We have 486 acres. We're building a state-of-the-art facility. I welcome you and the team to come join and see, as many others have. And this is really going to be the supporting aspect of our business. Operationally, adult use is not too dissimilar from medical. You need to be producing high quality cannabis that is safe, effective, and consistent. And that's where we think we're going to be leaders.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And we've got some people in our chat rooms here wanting to go more into this short report. What I say to those investors right now, as you said at the beginning, George, you guys are taking the time to go through this bit by bit and give a response there. People that put out short reports like this, it usually takes them weeks to be able to go there, to film things, to do due diligence, and then we all of a sudden ask for a response in 24 hours, 48 hours. I mean, personally, as an investor in different companies, I think that's a little bit unrealistic. So for those people asking, we've touched on that already. We will get back to that in a future time when you've been able to come out with your response, and we could always take it from there as well.
Thank you very much.
Well, George, I appreciate it very much for coming on and giving some time for us. Always a pleasure. Like I said earlier, first off, like you said, I'd love to come out to Florida. If we're going out there, Ed and I will be there.
Let's jump on a plane.
We'll jump on a plane, and there's snow everywhere. But I appreciate you coming on, taking some of the harder questions, taking some of the better questions, but just in general, being in here and giving us your time. We appreciate it. Looking forward to hearing your responses on the short report that was released yesterday.
Thank you, George.